Okay, we are on lesson 4, learn activity 3, working with columns. If you haven't done this one before, click learn. If you have, click practice. This is one that took me a couple of times to try and get right. There was one, I think it was number 5, that kept would not turn green for me. It took me a couple of tries, starting from the very beginning and going through it again. All right, so our step 1 is to set up columns. With the trade show brochure draft document open, click the Layout tab, and in the Page Setup group, click Orientation and then click Landscape. So I can tell that this is the trade show brochure draft because the title bar tells me so. And then I'm going to click on the Layout tab. Whoa, there we go. My screen blanked out for a second. So click the Layout tab, and in the Page Setup group, click Orientation and then click Landscape. So remember, our group names are down here on the bottom, right? So Page Setup group right here. Here's our columns. Oh, no, I'm on Orientation. Sorry, I want to click Orientation and then Landscape. This is going to change my paper style to be more horizontal. So if I was printing, it would come out, I guess you would say sideways. At the top of the document, type what's coming up at Tulano. So the very top of the document. If you wanted to use a keyboard shortcut, you could use the Control and Home. That will take your cursor to the very top of the page. Mine was already there. I'm going to type what's coming up at Tulano, ? And hit enter. So I just typed it right in front of where it said new tour offering. Alright, click the Layout tab, and in the Page Setup group, click Columns. So I'm already on the Layout tab. Page Setup group is here. Now I click Columns, and I am going to select 2 for the number of columns. So notice how the document now shows the text in 2 columns, including the title, even though the cursor was at the beginning of New Tour Offering heading. This is a good start to the newsletter, although you want the title to be above the columns of text. Select the entire title line, and on the Layout tab, click Columns and then click 1. So to select that, I'm just going to click and drag over that title line, what's coming up at Tulano, and I am going to go to the Layout tab, already there, and Columns, and I'm going to select 1. Now, last time you noticed that it turned, we just had our cursor anywhere, and it made the whole thing into 2 columns. Because we've selected this specific text, and when we click 1, it's just going to apply it to the text that we have selected. So click Mark as Answered and go to Next. So for step 2, apply styles. It says select the text what's coming up at Tulano. Okay, I already have that selected. When I click back into my document, I can still see it selected. Click the Home tab, and in the Styles group, click Heading 1 to apply the style to the title. So Home tab up here, and then we're going to the Styles group. So remember, our group names are down here at the bottom. Here's our Styles group, and we want to click Heading 1. So up here, this is called our Quick Styles Gallery, and you can see that it has different titles down here at the bottom. So it wants us to select Heading 1, which we can see right here. If I hover over it, you notice it changes my text. And if I click on it, it will apply it to that title. On the Home tab and in the Font group, change the font size to be 18. Press Ctrl and E to center the text. Click the Layout tab, and in the Paragraph group, change the spacing before to 0 point and the spacing after to 12 points. So we're going to break this down. The first thing it said on the Home tab, which were there, and in the Font group, change the font size to 18. Alright, the next thing it said to do was press Ctrl and E to center the text. My text is still selected. I'm going to press the Control key and then tap the E key, and it will center my text for me. Next, it says click the Layout tab, and in the Paragraph group, down here, we are going to change the spacing before to 0 point and the spacing after to 12 points. So you can see there's indent and there's spacing. Here's before and after. So I'm going to change before to 0 and after to 12. So they're in 6 point increments, so you can just click it twice. So you notice that my title is now a little bit bigger, a little bit spaced out differently, which is nice. So we're going to mark as answered, and then click Next. Now we're going to change the page setup. So scroll through the pages of the newsletter to review how the text flows in this two-column format. Suppose you decide you want to have the newsletter fit on one page. You will now change the margins as well as increase the number of columns to 3. So click the Layout tab, we're already there, and in the Page Setup group, click Margins and click Narrow. Alright, so Layout tab, here's our margins. We're going to click the drop down here, and it gives us an option for narrow margins. I'm going to click that, and you'll notice that my text has now shifted a little bit. Alright, you can check where your features are by clicking onto the Show or Hide Formatting Marks tab. So click the Home tab, and in the Paragraph group, click the Show Hide Formatting Marks command to show all those formatting marks. So now you see them everywhere, including right here where it says section break. Right, that tells me that I have one section here and then one section down here. Mark as answered and go to next. So change the margins. Click the Layout tab, and in the Page Setup group, click the Page Setup dialog box launcher. The narrow margins are reflected in this dialog box, but you need to change what parts of the document are to be affected. So we already changed the margins using a quick formatting option, but now we're going to go in and set them specifically. So we're going to go to the Layout tab here, and Page Setup group right here. And we want to click the dialog box launcher, which is that little square in the corner. That's going to give us a pop-up that has more options that are shown on our ribbon. Now it says what we want to do is click the arrow for the Apply To field and then click Hold Document. If necessary, reset the margins to 0.5 inches each and click OK. So you notice there's an image over here, and if you click that, it will show you what we're looking for, what we want it to look like. So let's close out. It's not a great picture because it really doesn't show you the edges of the document. But the first thing we need to do is click on Apply To the whole document. That's down here at the bottom of that dialog box. Click Whole Document. Now it took away our former measurements that were here. So we're going to have to add those back in. So it says if necessary, reset the margins to 0.5 inches each and click OK. So I'm just going to really quickly click these up to 0.5 inches and then click OK. Now you notice how that text really jumped this time. And the last thing to do is turn off the Show and Hide Formatting Marks feature. So that's on the Home tab. I can click that off. Makes it nice, a lot easier to read. Mark as answered, go to next. So apply columns. Change the number of columns from 2 to 3. So the first thing we're going to do is click anywhere in the 2-column text. Just click on the document once to activate it, click again to put my cursor somewhere in the text down below. Click the Layout tab, and in the Page Setup group, click Columns and click 3. Alright, so back to Layout tab, Page Setup group, Columns. We're going to select 3. Now I have 3 columns showing. And it automatically reflows the text, but you'll notice that there are some broken paragraphs in here. So sometimes you have to go back and clean up, do a little cleaning up. Click at the beginning of the Our Presentations heading and then press Control and Enter. So our presentation is right here. I'm going to click at the very beginning of that, and then I'm going to hold the Control key and tap the Enter key. And you notice that created a page break. So now my Our Presentations column is down here on the next page. So I don't really want to do that. So on the Quick Access toolbar, I'm going to click Undo to undo that action. What I was looking for, so undo's up here on the Quick Access toolbar. There we go. What I really want to do is make this a new column, not a new page. So up here, mark as answered. Click Next. So this time I'm going to press Control plus Shift plus Enter to insert a column break. So if I click back in to activate my document, my cursor is still at the beginning of Our Presentations. So I'm going to hold the Control key, hold the Shift key, and now tap the Enter key. And that makes a new column instead of a new page. Alright, so that's starting at the very beginning. So you can also click column from the breaks command in the page setup group on the layout tab. Right, so they're right here. So mark as answered and go to next. So formatting columns. With the cursor anywhere in the column text starting with the new tour offering and ending with admission to the trade show, click columns and then click more columns. Alright, so new touring offer is here, and then there's admission to the trade show. So anywhere in this column we can put our cursor here. Then what we're going to do, we're going to click columns and more columns. So that's layout tab, columns. Down at the very bottom is an option for more columns. Select line between to display a vertical line between the columns, and then using the incremental buttons for the spacing of column 1, change this measurement to 0.3 inches and click OK. So looking at this dialog box, right, it gives us a lot of options. There's width and spacing here. Here's our line between. We want to check that, and that will add a line between our columns. And then we're going to change the width and spacing of column 1, which is activated right here. The width is 3 inches. The spacing is 0.5 right now. We're changing this to 0.3 so it has a little more room in our document. And then we're going to click OK. So you can see that those changes were applied. There's our lines. Our columns are fitting better into the page. And then mark as answered. So you'll notice too, it's still 2 pages, even though realistically we could make it 1. But I'm just following the instructions as written. Show results, and yes. And there we go. Good job.